Come on friends, today on Bakery Step by Step. We attack the myth, the honeycombed baguette. Now I've just cut off a little bit of it for you to make you a little salive, okay? We try to make a baguette in a cobblestone, okay? Very easy to shape, especially to show you that the shaping will have a direct impact on the honeycomb, okay? If I shape a lot, if I shape a little, and so on, you're going to have a possibly aesthetic gain, but you'll lose honeycombing. You're about to find out immediately afterwards in the video. So, friends, stay focused, keep up to date, and you're going to be the kings of the honeycombed baguette, I'd like to say. So long, folks. So, for the recipe, today's friends, we're going to make a top quality baguette. I've called it, well, I don't really know what to call it. I'll give you the technique instead to create honeycombing. So, to have honeycombing, my basic recipe is here. Now I'm going to try and make 2 baguettes at home because I don't have much room. T65 in the French tradition, 290. 5 grams of salt, 3 grams of fresh yeast. TB75 water, 200 grams. So that's 70%. And liquid sourdough, 200 for 1 kilo, 60 grams. So that's about 550 grams for 2 baguettes. The aim is to increase hydration. If I want honeycomb, I need a good moisturizer, a good liquid sourdough often, quality flour, and an oven to match. That's the basics. Especially one flour, T65, which will give me a nice glutinous network. We're going to develop the glutinous network as much as possible, priming hydration. And liquid sourdough, which works well. So I freshened up this morning. He's in great shape. That's top DJ. You can go there. There's no problem. I could make 100% sourdough bread, but right now I don't have much time. And I don't really want to bother. In other words, I'm going to put, my fresh yeast. It's going to be the fermentation input. And automatically when I add sourdough, I have fermentation too. But this is what's going to bring me easier to look at. So the aim is to knead the mixture. As usual, you're used to it. Good TB, set the TB correctly to obtain a dough at 25 degrees Celsius after kneading. And then we're going to get a 1-hour check-in and a long checkout. The more I score, the better for honeycombing. So that's where I'm at now, after slashing. So here you have a paste that will be softer than usual. That's the goal. We're going to look for a soft dough. In other words, a slightly soft consistency. Molle is the wrong word. Soft is the right one. The consistencies of the dough are either firm, bastard, or soft. To get the honeycomb effect, we're going to work with fairly soft doughs. After my slash, I'll leave a little relaxation, as usual when I knead by hand, by 20 minutes. And then I'm going to start my stretch blow molding. If you work with a robot, you don't stop. You work non-stop, 4 minutes in the first half, 6 minutes in the second half, and it drives itself. So a little 20 minutes of well-covered relaxation. After my first 20 minutes, you'll have a paste, which will ooze a little. That's normal. The tights can be dried with the tops of your hands, never with the inside. I've already said this several times. Why is it so hot? Because the inside of the hand is very hot in relation to the top of the hand. It sticks a little. That's normal. If you want honeycombing, you need to work with hydrated pastes. It's the best technique. So I'm going to continue my stretch blow molding. After stretching, you'll get this, a dough that holds together a little better, and it's well farted. She doesn't have much strength. There's no pressure. Especially if it's too sticky. Do not add too much flour. Why do you want to do that? Because afterwards it will create a dull, pale crust when baked. Adding flour after kneading will influence your crust and coloring. So I leave it for an hour at room temperature. This is my first score. And then I'm going to make a flap. So after clocking in for an hour, we've reached this point. We can see the fermentation starting to kick in. The dough is smooth. And she stretches. I make a good flap. I flour my turn. Not too much flour as usual. I spill my pastry onto my lathe. My pastry is a bit sticky. That's all right. I'm going to degas it, and I'm going to make a good flap. I shoot and put it back on the middle. If it sticks too much, I can flour a little. I can also move around with my pastry cutter. In other words, I leave my pastry cutter hanging around on the wave. It will scrape the lap, and I'm going to my left. Very good movement to move. I put it in my cul-de-pool. And at that time, to get a nice dough, it will start at around 10 a.m. at 4 degrees Celsius. I can leave a little more, as long as my fermentation is not too active. In other words, it has to be stopped between 4 degrees Celsius and 7 degrees Celsius. That's the maximum. Day 2, my dough comes out of the fridge and let it come back to temperature at around 17 degrees Celsius. I don't know if it's easy to see. To tell you the truth, it took 2 hours. I'll be able to divide my dough pieces. The aim of the video is to have a dough that is honeycombed. The network is well established. The gases are retained. I'll have to work delicately with my fingertips so as not to outgas too much and keep the honeycomb side. I'm going to make a baguette that I will scarify. I'm going to use normal formatting and another paving stone to touch it as little as possible. That way we can compare the two ways. I've got my 2 dough pieces, weighing exactly 260 grams. For my baguette, I'm going to make usual formatting. Be careful with the flour, but always sparingly. For my baguette, I'm going to make a 2-part layout. One time, I put the outside back on the inside. In a second time, she's going to relax. Covered for 10 minutes. For my paving stone, when I smell, i.e. when I throw the flour on my lathe, it's called flouring. I go in delicately to avoid a crust that is too hard, which will prevent the gases from escaping. For my paving stone, like my baguette, I'm going to do some formatting. Except then I'm going to stop touching it, and I'll put it straight in the oven with this shape of paving stone. A bit like focaccia. Not touching it too much will necessarily bring me with a beautiful stone firing and hydration, leavening, and honeycombing. I didn't touch my paving stone very much. I'm going to put it on a nappy that I will have sifted. And as usual, I'm going to put it right in front of me. My weld is here. I sifted my laundry, and I'm going to imprison him in my laundry on a well-floured cloth, and I'm going to put it in the oven in around 30 to 40 minutes maximum. For my baguette, the beautiful side is there. I'm going to turn my dough over. Je vais fleurer. My turn very slightly. Degas my bread with your fingers and not by pressing hard with your hand. I'm going to shape a first time. And for this way of doing things, I will shape a second time in the same direction. I'm going to take off. With my pastry cutter, et je vais placer my baguette tourniquet, sift my cloth, and my baguette will move the weld upwards during the aftermath to return. My 2 dough pieces will need to be turned over when I put them in the oven. It's called a tourniquet. And then the aftermath lasts 40 minutes at room temperature. For tradition and honeycombing, a lot of scoring and a little after. For baking, it's been exactly 40 minutes. Afterwards, I'm going to tip my dough on my papers to make them easier to transport. It's always the same technique. My weld is upstairs. I placed my sheet of baking paper correctly, but now I work delicately to avoid fingerprints. There are 2 possibilities. Either I write a paving stone, where I will scarify once, so that my gases escape. Otherwise, I can do it without scarifying. I'm going to do it because I prefer it. Scarification is an aesthetic gesture, but it's also to give direction to the gases that will escape. Sometimes the dough is too floured. You scarify. But as the crust is too thick, the gases escape downwards. This is my first post. For my baguette, I always scarify at the last second. For my paving stone, I make a single blade stroke. And for my baguette, I make 2 blows with my blade, and I'm off to the oven. As usual, the baguettes are cooked. Not carrots. It's not a crazy result, but what we're going to be able to do is to compare something very interesting. I'll let you send me my products for 45 minutes. Never cut hot chopsticks, sino la mia colle, and you don't stand a chance. To see the honeycomb, what we'll be able to see is the difference in work between a shaped stick and bread that wasn't strong enough, i.e. my paving stone, that I didn't shape. I just formatted it, and I put it in the oven like that. You can see it's smooth. It's because it's so lacking in strength. And then to the oven. The bread didn't spit. Let's get down to business. We can see our baguette with a micro scarif and our unmade paving stone. Sometimes people ask me, why after the long score? You can't put them straight in the oven. The problem is when you're not shaping, i.e. you're just formatting. It's not going to be strong enough. The problem with this bread, I think it's going to be honeycombed, but on the other hand, it lacks force. It's lacking in spunk, as we often say. At the time of scarification, the bread will start to sag. And if you bury it on a stone, plus a stone that's not necessarily very hot, so he's not going to have enough explosiveness in development. My baguette had been shaped, and then 10 minutes after relaxation, I shape. My baguette is going to have just a little more bite to it. That's interesting because you can see it here, that we have a grind that will be a little more torn. Unlike the bread, which had not been shaped, we're going to open both rooms. At the level of the alveolus, the appearance was a little less beautiful, but we have a honeycomb that is quite dominant, fairly regular. Here we have it, which is going to be greasy. The baguette wasn't as good. Why is this? Because of the shaping, etc. We will have hunted a little too much gas. And perhaps the flour and hydration, we weren't at our best. Morsi. Is that by making us baker, a blacksmith, a good blacksmith, I'd say. There's nothing to worry about. You know exactly what's inside. Flour, salt, yeast, leaven, and love. And that's it, folks. That's how bakery works. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you soon on Bakery Step by Step. Don't forget, subscribe and share. See you soon.